Well, afternoon. Oh, I am excited. I'm very excited. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Roost Podcast News. We are all things volunteer here at the Roost Podcast, and I'm very excited to welcome today Alf Anderson, who is the Associate Director for Advocacy and Outreach Volunteer Lead. And along with Mr. Alf Anderson, we've got Amy Davidoff. And I just learned that Amy is like a specialty volunteer. I know she does other things, but especially for our topic today, the Broadband Project. And the actual topic is the Digital Equity Outreach for Portland, Maine. And I will be interviewing Mr. Anderson and Miss Davidoff, and I'm just excited to be educated and to learn what you all are doing in Portland, Maine. And if I forget and say Portland, Oregon, please forgive me, listeners. It's Portland, Maine that we're talking about. Well, I'm anxious to dive in, but before we do that, let's get some more information about Alf and Amy. Please just take a moment to tell us a little bit about yourselves, how long you've been working with AARP, maybe what got you even interested in this particular topic, and then we'll dive in.
Well, thanks so much for having us. This is really exciting to be able to talk with your audience about a program that I know is really important to us here in Maine, and I know Amy's excited about the work we're doing as well. So, as you mentioned, I'm the Associate State Director for Advocacy and Outreach. I work closely with a lot of volunteers. Thankfully, Amy is one of those volunteers that helps us out a great deal. I've been with AARP for a year and a half, a little over a year and a half now. So I'm just starting to have an idea of what it is I'm doing around here. And one of those areas is, as we were talking about, is digital equity and broadband infrastructure. It's something I didn't know a whole lot about before I started here, but it's really exciting to be a part of the implementation of some of the federal funds that are going to help bridge the digital divide, working with so many great organizations around the state, and especially great volunteers like Amy.
I paid him to say that. Thank you so much. It's really it's an honor to be asked to help out a little, and hopefully we'll have an engaging conversation. I started out, I've recently retired. I'm a university professor, and I moved up to Augusta area, which is our capital rather than the Portland area, but Augusta is very rural as it is, and I'm just outside of town, and I don't even have cell phone coverage. So we can be really close to state capital and not have cell phone coverage. So I had a personal interest in looking into some of this, and started out with the advocacy groups that Alf now leads. And it's legislative outreach, and it became quick that there was going to be a great deal of state and federal funds to expand internet access. And I just dove into that because I'm a very firm believer in it. And just to wind up a little, I think Alf might talk about it. ARP started a group called County Connectors. And this was a way in which ARP could reach out at a more community level. And maybe Al can talk about that, but that's sort of how I started, and hopefully we'll get into some other topics with a little more detail.
I am so thank you, and welcome again. But Amy, I'm just so glad that you shared that little snippet of your personal history with this. Because the story of just not having cell phone coverage when you move to that area helps us really get the picture. You know what I'm saying? Because you can use phrases like digital equity and digital divide, and we conjure up different meanings for that. So on that note, let's talk about how you are defining digital inclusion and digital divide and digital equity. And I would just ask that as you're sharing that definition of what it is, I'd ask you to also, if you can, as young people say, unpack what it is not. Does my question make sense? You understand what I'm saying?
I think so. Yeah.
Because those of us of a certain age think we think we know everything and we think we understand, but we really may not.
It's funny, the older I get, I feel like the less I know.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so the definition, that we work with here, a definition of digital equity that we kind of work with here, and the state partners that are really doing the government funded work sort of agree with this in principle is, it's sort of like a three-pronged definition of digital equity. One is having everyone should have access to high-speed, reliable, high-speed, affordable internet service at home. They should have a device or multiple devices on which they can access that internet service. And they should have the knowledge and confidence, which is another thing that I've sort of learned as I do some of this work, is there's a real lack of confidence, especially with adults over a certain age. So having that knowledge and confidence to use the device to access the internet so that you can do all kinds of things, participate in society as it is today. What is digital equity not? It's not just saying, everyone has internet service and then we're done. Because what happens is you can have the fastest internet service to the end of your driveway or the front door of your home, but if you can't plug in a device, you don't know how to turn on your device, you don't know who to call when you have to troubleshoot your device. You really are falling through the cracks there. So that's sort of the definition that we work with here in our office.
We have a really strong determination to try to make sure everybody's safe online as well. Cybersecurity is a big part of it.
I'm glad you mentioned that as well. I just jotted down knowledge and confidence, Alf, because God knows I've got to stop telling myself how intimidated I feel by a lot of the digital stuff, and I'm pretty confident that I am not the only person that lacks total confidence in dealing with stuff. So thank you for saying that knowledge and confidence go together, because you can think you know something and still not feel confident or competent.
Yeah.
And Amy, your point about cybersecurity, that causes me to think of another question that I was going to raise later on, but let me just insert it here. Are there other AARP programmers or projects that you might work with? And what comes to mind is like the cybersecurity and being safe online. Do you want to talk about how you all may be collaborating on some of that?
Sure. Maybe Senior Planet Elf, and we can talk about NEDC and a couple others if you want.
Yeah, you want to start with those two, and then I'll add a little bit after that.
So AARP has a collaborative relationship, and I'm not sure about exactly what it is, but in terms of finance and stuff. But there's a program called Senior Planet that's a national organization. They have multiple tiers in which they train people at the community level to provide a place for seniors to go. It's not just digital equity and security, but they have a number of programs on cybersecurity and access for digital literacy. They also have finances and arts and crafts and chair yoga and all sorts of things. But it's not just in the in-person mode. They also have online modes where anyone can access these classes. So they're hour-long Zoom classes to do all that. So there's a whole big schedule. So it's everything from in-person all the way up to, or the other way around, to the Zoom. And that's free for users. And so through AARP, it's called Senior Planet. And I would really encourage your folks to get involved with it. We have the access to the National Digital Equity Center, NDEC, which is actually Maine based, but I think they're intended to go have availability to everybody nationally. They have online courses, and one of them is cybersecurity. And then there's other skill building sets as well. So I haven't taken courses myself. I probably should, but they've got a pretty good reputation. So that's kind of the beginning of it. There are lots of partners. I took a look at your state's a digital equity plan, and they have a lot of resources as well. That's very similar to Maine's plan, but needless to say, yours is a lot bigger. So,
And now, when you say my state, are you talking about the state of Maryland or the state
I'm
of
sorry. I thought we were
North Carolina?
North Carolina. Yeah, I
North
apologize.
Carolina, got it.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
okay.
apologize. Yeah.
No, but thank you, Amy, for even saying that, because it occurs to me that I have not explored what is available in the state of Maryland, and I would expect that it should be fairly robust. I could be wrong, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So thank you for even mentioning that. Let me go back to a little bit on definitions, just for a second. Clearly, and even before that, your program, from everything I've heard so far, is geared toward AARP folks, us, our target, the 50 plus population. Am I right about that, or is my thinking off?
Well, you're not off for sure, but the state plan, the whole state of Maine plan, is the digital equity is focused on supporting 8 groups of sort of coverage areas. You can't quiz me because I'll never be able to cite all 8. But older adults
I
is
have it
one of
written
those
down
categories.
right here, Alf.
Yeah, Amy can read them up. But so older adults is definitely one of those covered categories. So that's where we come in. That's where we're able to contribute expertise and resources to achieving the goals of creating digital equity for everyone, right? So making sure that people over the age of 50 have high-speed, reliable, affordable internet service, devices, know-how, and confidence. The statewide plan is for everyone, and that includes all the other covered groups, which are current or formerly incarcerated individuals, minorities, you name it. Every covered population is within their plan. But we bring our focus to the folks over the age of 50 because that's where we're experts. That's where we have the resources to be able to offer our expertise.
Okay, that makes sense.
And
Yes, Amy.
Yes, the Maine Connectivity Authority is the big umbrella group. It's a quasi-governmental group. And so they're doing everything from helping leverage funds to build out or work with internet service providers to help coordinate a whole bunch of different groups to deliver the digital equity part of it, but also the wired part of it, the hardware and the access. So AARP has a lot of overlap with a number of the key audiences that they're looking for. Like, I'm just going to read them off. The individuals with disability, and maybe we can talk about assistive technology too, which is something that's important, because it also can be engaged with the AARP or the senior group. English language as a barrier, low literacy people, not just digital literacy, but language literacy. Members of racial and ethnic minority groups, and I'm reading again, low-income individuals with primary who live in rural areas, and that is a big chunk of the state of Maine. And as Al said, older adults and veterans are also part of the list.
Wow, that's a lot. but I can, each one of those has its own, well, I'm not even sure the adjective I'm looking for, but well, let me do one that I'm mildly familiar with. Before I began volunteering with AARP, I always volunteered with one of the visual assisted organizations, be it Columbia Lighthouse for the Blind or something else. All of that to say, I'm always impressed when I get together with a woman who's now a friend that I used to be a reader for. Her technology skills, although she's totally blind, but because of assistive technology, as you probably know, her computer skills are far superior to mine. I mean, she needed a reader, but the reality is most things she could do much better than I could even begin to do. I'm really impressed with assistive technology. So I do understand it, but I also understand that when it's not working and we need the digital ability for it to work seamlessly, or it's
Right.
what's the point?
Yeah.
Do you all have any favorite stories on some aspects of what you have been able to do with the goals you set for your program?
I mean, I would say my favorite part of this work is the collaborative nature. Statewide, there are so many organizations and individuals that are contributing to the success of the statewide digital equity plan. And again, we're one part of that, and we're bringing our volunteers and our expertise to that. And there's just this camaraderie in the space that is really heartwarming. And there's just a lot of people pulling in the same direction, I guess is one way to put it. And it's just it really makes it exciting to go to some of the public events that we have here throughout the state over the course of the year, to learn from each other and share ideas, and hear what someone is doing successfully in one corner of the state that we can replicate or help others replicate. So that to me is the most exciting and positive part of this work.
Do you want to add to that, Amy?
Well, a big chunk of my efforts and our efforts up to recently have been to develop the digital equity plan. That just got funded in February. So we were one of the first states to be funded. So before that, it was really important to work with a variety of groups to find out what the needs of the areas are. Because the needs in Portland, Maine, which is urban, is going to be vastly different than Vassalboro, Maine, where I live. And some of it could be just the lines don't go to my house or don't go to whatever, versus I can't afford it. So it was everything from us trying to figure out what the needs are so we could develop a statewide plan to really address those needs. And so that has been a lot of fun, as Alf said, because everybody's been really enthusiastic and excited about the opportunity to do this. So now we're implementing the plan. And I guess the thing I would say most of all is all of our big efforts really come down to bringing it down to the community. And so finding community members to, sort of take the lead, identify the needs at the local level where we could put the resources. And Alf has been incredibly generous with his time and his efforts, and the shout out to Maine State AARP, because they're just phenomenal. I get to say that.
I paid her to say.
Good. A great plug for Maine AARP. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Amy. You actually brought up something that I had planned to ask a question about, but you've introduced it, and you pretty much have answered it, because it did occur to me that there's not a one size fits all for exactly what you want to eventually accomplish. Am I correct about that?
Oh, absolutely.
So I do want to hear more about your some of your specific goals. But before I do that, I realized that I did not address a definition question that I had in my notes, and that's about tactics. Can you help me understand what you all mean when you say tactics?
Yeah, well, anyone who's on AARP advocacy staff will be very familiar with um, the roadmap structure that we use to map out projects and programs here, where you set your goals, you implement identify your strategies for reaching your goal, and then finally you start talking about the tactics. What are the things you're going to do sort of on the ground to achieve the goal? And for us, the tactics, in the early days, as Amy has described it, has been identifying organizations that we can partner with and support in this work around the state. And another tactic Amy has already brought up is our County Connectors program, where we've recruited volunteers to help us around the state, raise awareness of some of the needs, raise awareness of some of the programs that are happening in their communities or could be happening in their communities. So those are some of the sort of like broad brush tactics that we've been using, is really gathering people and bringing them to work with us on this cause.
Well, thank you. Actually, that filters into exactly continuing on in learning more about your specific goals, which is what we all want to know about, and any specific suggestions you would make to volunteers who will be listening to this podcast and may want to explore what they can do to bring something similar to their areas in working with what we already know is available with some of the funding.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start, and then Amy, feel free to add anything you think I might I might miss. The first thing I would suggest is if you're hearing this, connect with your AARP state office if you haven't already. There are probably opportunities to work with staff members at AARP on some of the work. It may look a little different than it looks like here in Maine, but like you said, it's not a one size fits all from state to state. And then also, I would encourage people to get engaged with their state agency that's sort of been tasked with deploying the federal funds that are coming from the bipartisan infrastructure law that will, the BEAD, and I can never remember that acronym, but that's the infrastructure money. That's the money that's going to actually be deployed to build out broadband projects, to bring broadband internet service to people's homes. There are definitely opportunities to work with state agencies, if not through AARP, then maybe other avenues. But if someone's passionate about this, I would encourage them to start with, of course, start with AARP, your state office, but then maybe take a look at what your state agency, your state government agency might be doing.
Yeah, every state should have a digital equity plan. And so getting online to see what organizations are engaged in that is a great way after you look at AARP.
Selfishly.
I like your shameless plug, Amy, for AARP. But I agree. It's the way I feel about the Roost News. Our tagline: "All things volunteer." So I get it. We've talked about collaboration, and you shared some of the organizations that you're working with, and I asked you about things that a particular proud moment for you, a great success. Did I overlook something that you really wanted to share in terms of your goals and what you hope to achieve?
I don't know, Amy, anything that you can think of? I mean, I immediately thought of the digital equity workshop, which happens. We've had it 2 years in a row now. It's becoming an annual workshop that the state agency, the Maine Connectivity Authority, brings together all of those organizations and individuals to do, like I described earlier, to get together and share ideas, share successes, and hopefully pull together to continue to achieve success on the work being done statewide. Other than that, I can't think of it. I don't know, Amy, if there's anything else that comes to mind.
Well, I think I mentioned a little bit before, but it all really comes down to community. So if your people who are viewing this podcast, maybe check with your municipality and see if they have a broadband committee or not. And if not there, maybe, Maine has counties. So if it's not by town, it may be by county. And for example, Maine has a regional and Wabanaki partners group, which is really basically the tribes and the different counties. And those working groups are really sort of the core to find out both need, but also how to disseminate information for people, to identify people's needs, but also to help people find the resources that have. And so it all comes down to locality. The group I'm with, we've been working with the libraries in our county, and that's a great place to start. The state of Maine made a commitment years ago that all libraries, all town and state libraries, have high-speed internet. So there's a place where people can go, but people are going to want to do telehealth, telemedicine, have private conversations in their homes, and whether it's banking or whatever, they've got to know how to do it. And broadcasting online is good for a certain population, but we're not capturing everybody. There's certainly people who are not online we're not capturing, and so that's a whole nother challenge that we face, at least in rural Maine.
And give us an example of some of the target that you would like to capture that you're not capturing.
Well, I've been working with it through this regional partner group in our county. There's a HUD, a federal funding housing, HUD housing, and some of the people, even though the building may have cable, it doesn't have fiber, but it's cable. Some people can't afford the internet access. Some people don't have the devices. So in Maine, we also have a unbelievably cool company called Give IT, Get IT, where they take used institutional, whether it's university or banks, whatever, they clean up their computers, they get rid of all the important data, and then refurbish them and either give them out for free or very inexpensively. And that's the philanthropic arm of theirs. And I suspect other states have that as well. And whatever components they can't use, what I really like is they recycle it, all the individual components responsibly. So we get a big bang for all that.
I like that. Yeah. Makes sense to me. Would you add anything to that, Alf?
I think Amy's, she's really, when it comes down to the community level stuff, I have a lot to learn from her. I think she's pretty much nailed it.
Very small community though, but that's how you get it done, one step at a time. Yeah,
it's true.
They say about Maine is it's big geography, but it's just one big small town
here.
Yeah. Now, did you both grow up in Maine? I didn't ask you that when I introduced you. I know I said you're both from Maine because you're working on this project in Portland, Maine. But I see, Alf, you shook your head. You're not originally from Maine?
I am not. As much as I try to be accepted here in the state. I'm originally from Connecticut. Go Huskies! But I married a Maine girl. But I've been told repeatedly that does not qualify me to become a Mainer.
Okay.
You have to have 3 generations before you're a Mainer. I actually grew up in Massachusetts, but went to college in Maine and spent 18 years trying to get back here. So professionally.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow.
So finally made it back about 28 years ago.
Bravo.
I'm still not from Maine. I will never be from Maine, even though I want to be.
And despite how long you've lived there.
That's right.
Okay. Well, this has just been highly informative and a sheer pleasure. One final question for you. I always just like to ask, you sure there's anything that you were waiting for me to ask you and I didn't pose that question that you just want to share?
I have one thing that I thought of during one of the earlier questions, and I would love to just mention because we have an exciting program we're working on with the Maine Connectivity Authority, the University of Maine, and the Rue Institute, which is part of Northeastern University. It's a program called Start Summit. It's a hackathon where they sort of get people in a room and brainstorm ideas. So this is happening October 4th and 5th at the University of Maine. What they're going to do is focus the brainstorming on finding solutions to keep older adults safe online. So we talked about fraud prevention earlier, cybersecurity. So we're going to put all these brilliant minds together to try to come up with solutions to keep older adults safe online. And I'm really looking forward to the outcome of that. And hopefully we'll get some really great results and be able to share that far and wide.
Oh, that sounds exciting, and certainly needed. Certainly needed. We all have stories of a friend or family member who, you know, clicked something they ought not to have clicked, and you know, it can sometimes have really disastrous results. So yeah, thank you. Anything you want to add to that, Amy?
Oh, I'm sure I'll think of it once we sign off from each other. No, we could go on for hours, and again, it's been an honor to be asked to share these ideas with you. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. You both have really given us so much to be grateful for, but your knowledge of how to continue to make improvements and shrinking the gaps that exist for so many of us who are of a certain age, and your awareness of what needs to be done. So thank you so much, Alf Anderson and Amy Davidoff. Did I do that correctly?
Did right.
Thank you. And to our
Thank you for
staff,
having
and
us.
thank you to our staff and volunteers who are watching this podcast. We thank you for listening to this podcast and all this information about digital equity and the outreach that this project is having in Portland, Maine. And we encourage you to make sure that you subscribe to our Roost News podcast. Again, we are all things volunteer. I'm Constance Harris saying good afternoon for today. Join us and listen wherever you find your favorite podcasts to the Roost News and spread the news. Thanks again, Alf and Amy.
Thank you so much.